Hello and welcome to another one of these monthly Instagram lives that I've been doing, talking to Ukrainian teachers of English. I'm going to be joined in a few minutes by a teacher from Kyiv called Eugenia. I think she's just joining me now, so let me just invite her in. Give me a minute. Hopefully that will work, and then we'll get going. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Has that worked or not? I think it has. Hey.
Hi.
Hello Eugenia.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Right. Happy Kyiv Day.
Excuse me, your sound is a little bit blotchy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Happy Kyiv Day.
Oh yes, thank you. It's 1,541 years, I think.
I hope you managed to enjoy the day and celebrate despite the little gift that the Russians sent this morning.
I wouldn't call those little gifts. I'm sorry, I'll just check on my internet connection. Just give me a second.
Okay, no problem.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a troubled night. It was more over 50 drones sent to Kyiv.
I saw.
But we're kind of getting used to it. However horrible that sounds, but we're just getting used to. And you know, it's like living this double life. You know, at night you're anxious, you're scared, and then in the morning you just start teaching your lessons and ask your students how they are doing, and you kind of have to switch between these two realities.
I guess it's like an extreme version of what all teachers do anyway, where if you have an argument at home or you've had a bad day and you've had a big problem with your husband or your wife or your partner or something, and then you have to kind of turn off and go into the classroom and like, hi, good morning students, how are you today? I guess it's like an extreme version of this.
Yeah, taken to a very to an extreme. Exactly. Yeah, sure.
And did it wake you up last night with all of the drones being taken out? And I live on the 16th floor, which is the highest floor in my building, and I live in such a spot in Kyiv that my windows overlook, like I can see like at the distance of probably like 15 kilometers around, like 10-15 kilometers. So like I have a full view of the right bank, half of the view of the left bank. So unwillingly, I witnessed this fight in the air. Like not only do I hear it, but I can actually see it. Not that I want to, but not that it's my choice. But this night we just closed all the windows and just tried to fall asleep because it lasted for like 5 hours. And I have 2 children, and they sleep in a room which has like better sound protection, so they even didn't wake up. And we don't have any bomb shelters in my building, and we don't have any bomb shelters around in our district. I live very far from the closest underground station, so we never actually hid from any missile attacks. So we just we just stay put, and when it's really scary, we're at least trying to kind of we have this rule of 2 walls. We're finding 2 like a hall or where there are no windows, and we're protected by the walls. Side wall, yeah.
So that's like day-to-day life in Kyiv.
How old are your kids, Eugenia?
They're teens. My youngest is 12. My oldest is 14. Okay. And we've been
They had an eventful childhood. First COVID, then the war, and my youngest is saying, you know what, when I grow up, I will be telling my children how there was, that there was a worldwide pandemic, and then, there was this war. I'm like, I don't want you to be telling your children these stories, but you will have to. Like, it's not the stories that I would love you to have, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, funny because I grew up with my dad telling me stories of his memories of the Second World War, because my dad was born in 1930 and he grew up in South London, and so he still had these, right up until he died, he had these very strong memories of, seeing German planes being shot down and German pilots parachuting out and finding wreckage and bomb sites and playing in the bomb sites and all of this stuff. So when I was a kid in South London, there were still areas in the 70s where kids would play that were like the remnants of bomb sites,
Oh no.
So, it goes deep into the memory of the city, those kinds of events, I think.
Yeah, I grew up with the same stories from my grandfather, who fought in the Second World War. He was the defender of Kiev. So he actually, and he could tell the stories that, I'm living on the spot where actually the Germans, they were stationed here, like we actually, it's like precise. So he was also full of these stories, and I grew up with those stories. But then, back then, I did understand about Nazi Germany, but then when in school, Ukrainian story was thrown into this mix, not only Soviet Union against Germany, but somehow there was this Ukraine that was against Moscovian, Moscow regime. I was really, really confused. I was like, why would you fight against it? And I'll be honest, only this year have I started truly understanding how propaganda worked in our minds.
Yeah.
Like, we had no idea. When I read George Orwell, I was like, that's a good story, but it's it's like totally unreal. Yeah. But then this year I'm like, wait, I've seen it somewhere. So yeah, only this year did my family, my friends, a lot of my friends started realizing how blind we were, how maybe brainwashed. Yes, in some situations.
And tell us a bit more about your own kind of upbringing and your family and where you grew up and your background.
I am a native Kievite. I think in English it's Kievite.
Tell me whatever. Kievite.
Kievan, yeah, I even looked it up. I'm not sure. And my mother's line, everyone is from Kiev. My grandfather, who fought for Kiev, he is from like a small village in Kiev region. But right after the war, he in those times we could get apartments, so he got an apartment. So we've lived in Kiev. I've lived and my family has lived in Kiev all our lives. And my father's line, my father was Russian, but my mom and him, they divorced, so I didn't really grow up with him. I don't know him. I don't it happened before I was kind of able to comprehend what's happening. So I don't know much about that line. We haven't communicated. But when I was I can't remember when I got my first passport, it was 16, I believe. We had to switch our birth, like we had our birth certificates where it said that my mother is Ukrainian, my father is Russian. And then when I got my passport, I actually had a choice between two nationalities.
Wow.
And I was just, you know, I was 16. It was, what year that was? I can't count really well, but, you know, troubled 90s. So, you know, like I had no idea of what's going on. I was not a very, you know, I didn't get into politics at that age. So, like, I'm like, I chose Ukrainian, so maybe I chose Ukrainian. I just, you know, like, well, I live in Kiev, I live in Ukraine. Okay, I'll choose, you know, I'll choose Ukrainian. There wasn't much thought, you know, behind it. You know, I live with my mom, and she's Ukrainian, so it's gonna be easier if with the same nationalities. I'm like, okay, that was a close call.
And what did you grow up speaking in your family?
We've been and we are speaking some Russian. We've been speaking Russian all the time, like most Kievites did. And only since, let's say, 2014, did I started noticing that people around me, my, you know, like old friends, who've been, you know, who had been speaking Russian to me all their lives, then they suddenly switched to Ukrainian.
Yeah.
You know, like after this, the revolution, and but at that point, I still didn't quite. I kind of understood they wanted to promote Ukrainian, but again, at that point, I still did not equate. Kind of didn't make the connection between the language and the sense of kind of belonging to the nation. I still understand. My kids speak Russian at home, but they do speak Ukrainian in school, and I see that they're willing to make that change. So my son just recently, he told me, wait, I'll make an effort. Give me a second. I'll say it in Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So, like, even for the kids, it becomes.
It seems like a lot of people are making that transition.
Yeah, like I started speaking, and till the war started, you know, till the last year, I hadn't used Ukrainian in like 20 years. So I studied in Ukrainian in school, but my husband studied in Russian. He even attended the Russian-speaking school. Then I studied in Ukrainian in university, and I am qualified in primary teaching. So like in general, so I teach as a teacher of Ukrainian as well. So at some point I did know the grammar well, you know, the language itself. But then I just moved to teach in English, and at work I spoke Ukrainian, or at work I spoke English.
Yeah.
At home I spoke Russian, and I kind of didn't need Ukrainian much. I did switch to Ukrainian with a couple friends who are from the west of Ukraine, and it's kind of considered. Now I need to use the word it used to be because everything is changing so fast. But if you can't speak that another language, you're switching to that language. So if somebody spoke Ukrainian to me, I would switch, but not that many people did, especially in my region.
Oh, 1 minute. We've lost you a second, Eugenia. Let's hope you come back a minute. Oh, sorry. You glitched a bit there, but you're fine again.
Sorry. I hope it's okay. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. How did you first get into English and then into English language teaching? How did all that happen?
Everyone learned English at schools. I studied at the school.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Not everyone learns it well enough to become a teacher.
Yeah, well, I went to school which we call like specialized in English, that we would have more lessons. Like I had like 6 or 7 lessons a week, which was more than twice in a regular school. But now I looked at my notebooks, and when I was finishing the secondary school, I was like pre-intermediate. I wasn't really, you know, the school didn't help, but we studied with grammar translation method.
Yeah, of course.
I translated lots of sentences, just, you know, separate sentences. I still have those notebooks, 10 sentences in Ukrainian into 10 sentences in English, and then, you know, even backwards. And then in Ukrainian system, we can leave school after, like, before entering the high school.
Okay.
Go to like a technical school to get a profession faster. So I decided to leave after the secondary school. So it's either you graduate from higher school and you enter university, or you leave after the like basic secondary school. You go to this technical college, we call them, like school, and then you can enter university if you want, but like in the 5th year, kind of yours, basically. So I didn't like my school much, and I just entered the closest college, which was geographically closest to me, which was a pedagogical college. It didn't have a purely English teacher specialization like a faculty, but it was like primary teaching plus English for primary schools.
Okay.
But again, we started with Hadway. Yellow. Do you remember Yellow Hadway?
First book I ever taught from back in the 90s. So.
Yeah, so, and I think we've done maybe 3 books. So like elementary, pre-intermediate, intermediate. Again, like I felt that I liked the language, but I didn't have enough input. We didn't, again, even with the newest books and modern books, we still did grammar translation, you know, learning the texts by heart.
Yeah.
And lots of, but then I just felt that I liked the language, and I want to, I just started watching the, you know, the VHS cassettes like were appeared, and I just started watching lots of films in English. Then I started reading books in English. Harry Potter came out. Like I learned half of my English from Harry Potter books, and it kind of my level now. I tell my students that I'm self-educated. Like I didn't study at a linguistic university. I have never studied like phonology or whatever theory at university. I just taught myself. So I joined some speaking clubs in Kyiv. They were free. Like you just needed to buy a cup of coffee and get together with some expats to talk. And then I studied. There was this program. Well, I got into this experimental program, which doesn't exist anymore. But then it was 20 years ago. By the way, it was precisely 20 years ago. When I entered this pedagogical college, I was 15, and then 4 years later, I got a bachelor degree. So, like when I was 19, I already had bachelor's degree, but in Ukraine it wasn't considered full education, so we had to do, we had this unrecognized anywhere else in the world, this it's called specialist. It's like higher than bachelor but lower than master's.
Okay.
But then they say it's the same as the master's, so I kind of, my specialist diploma equals master's. But anyway, but it wasn't real. So I went to a university for just a year and a half to kind of finish that circle of full education. But in order to study for free, I signed this contract that I will be working for a state school for 3 years.
Yeah, okay.
So my first 3 years of experience were in a state school as a teacher of English for it was not primary teaching, like for all kinds of ages, because there is a shortage of English teachers, so they didn't care what I have in my paper, like in my diploma.
Yeah, they just kind of kick you into the classroom, yeah?
Yeah, so I was 19 when I became this class tutor of 5th graders with their parents who were like in their 30s, and I was like scared of them, and I had to take care of those kids, you know, like not only teach English but also kind of provide for them, you know, like organize their studies, etc. So it was like, these were the years when I grew up really quickly. Like I just became, like in 2 years I became an adult.
So they throw you in at the deep end and see if you can swim or not, I guess, yeah?
Yeah, precisely. And that's when but the salary was like, I couldn't, if I hadn't lived with my mother, I wouldn't have been able to provide for myself.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I got into language school as a teacher, like at the private courses, private language school, where I started teaching in the evenings.
I'm just reading the comments there, sorry.
Yeah, somebody said that after Ukrainian Pedagogical University, lots of teachers had to continue with self-education, but yeah, that's true.
It was the same for me, having done a 1-month CELTA course. You know, it was like, I realized very quickly how little I knew, you know, and how much there was to learn.
Not even saying CELTA here. It's like we've been taught, well, I remember one thing I've been taught in college and university, that like we were allowed to speak Ukrainian in the lesson, but then we had to take this, you know, stuffed animal and say, oh, this is a visitor from Britain, so he will be talking to you in English. So this stuffed animal would have to talk to the kids, and I will be translating whatever he's saying.
It's quite
this is the methodology we've been taught.
You know, it's a way of getting first language into the classroom, I guess.
Yeah, it's a way of getting English into the class, because otherwise teachers only speak Ukrainian, you know.
Yeah. So can I then go back to 2014, because you said that you noticed sort of changes in some of the people you knew, where people started switching a bit. From what you said earlier, would I be right in thinking that the kind of annexation of Crimea and what was happening in Donbass didn't massively impact you in Kyiv? Like, did you notice it? Did you feel a change? How was it for you around that time? Oh, Maidan going on as well, yeah?
Crimea, like we couldn't believe it. Like we couldn't fathom, we couldn't get our heads around that, because I used to spend every summer in Crimea. It was like I know every centimeter of the south coast. You know, I love you know, all those there are lots of national parks. I explored them on foot.
I explored them on like, that's where I actually learned riding a horse, and we would go into the mountains riding horses. And then, so it hit me first on a, on a personal level. Like, what do you mean? I can't go to Crimea anymore. And of course, later, people, like, after, it calmed down a little bit, I know that people, especially the ones who had families there, they were able to visit. But to me, it was like I won't go there until it's Ukraine. Like, let it be like an open wound, and then I will visit it again when it's back in Ukraine, officially, because like it felt like treachery to me to go there.
Was in Sebastopol in 2013, I guess spring 2013, doing some work at the universities there, and in 2016 or 17 I got offered some work there, and I had the same feeling, like I can't go there. It's like, how can you go to somewhere like that at the moment? But it's funny, because I was still going to Russia at that point, and I still went to Russia but didn't feel I could go to Crimea. So it kind of, for some reason, for me, I managed to do that kind of separating realities in my head, and kind of not joining all the dots together, I guess.
One of my friends who, from English-speaking club, I met a girl who is from Namibia, and she studied in Ukraine. A lot of Africans come to Ukraine to study medicine here because it's cheaper. And we have English-speaking medical universities, like private universities. So she studied in Sebastopol, and she studied like since, I think, from 2012, and then after the annexation she studied for like one more year of like 2014, and then she saw that nothing good is happening, so she transferred to Kiev, where they said, we do not recognize this last year of yours. And she was really extremely shocked, but she had to repeat a whole year. They did not recognize. They say, we don't know where you studied, that was not Ukraine. We can't recognize the stamp that you have on your papers, you have to repeat the year. It was like shocking for her, but it's kind of the position that lots of state organizations, they like took this point of view.
And so where were you, and what happened in the first week of the full-scale invasion last year, like from February 24th?
I was at home sleeping, and probably we kind of lived in the bubble, this this happy bubble of like watching the news and not believing them. My husband and I, we still remember that talk that we had when because it was not a secret, right? It was all over the place, all over the news. NASA photos, that Russians are bringing tanks and troops to the border, and we were like, they wouldn't, they won't do that. And my husband, like, can you imagine how much money they put just into dragging all those people across the country to put on our border? Like, what point are they trying to make? We didn't believe it. I had one of my closest friends, she believed it, but she was the only one who kind of believed that it would happen. Her husband, her mom, they did kind of, again, they were on the positive side. So she kind of had the huge argument at home, and she said, like, either we are leaving the country or like we're divorcing or something. I'm like, you're taking it to an extreme, but her husband, he's like, okay, let's go for a weekend, outside. So they left on the 22nd of February, and of course they're not back yet, but this is like everyone asks her, how were you able to leave with their husband? She's like, well, we left just 2 days before. And we just slept, and we woke up from the sounds of explosions, and this is when our world has changed forever.
Did you stay in Kyiv the whole time, or?
No, that day, even seeing all the news, we still, and my work, like I worked for a language school, my work like announced like nobody's going to work today, of course, but nobody at that moment could imagine the scale of it all. So everyone thought maybe, it will kind of, I don't know, blow over or something. And we didn't leave till 5 o'clock in the evening. I was like walking, like I'm so like I was packing my bag, and I'm like, I'm being stupid. This is stupid. Why am I packing my bag? Like, this is like, people will say that I am like I'm like, this is not normal. Like, but I was packing it, and then like all my friends started calling me like, you're crazy, you need to leave, like now. So we packed and we left, and we went to my friend kind of kindly offered us a house in the west of Ukraine, where we stayed for till May for 3 months. And we were lucky not to be there during the Kiev region, not occupation, but occupation. We didn't hear all of those gunshots and everything, and it was our parents stayed. They said like, oh, we're too old, we're too attached to our houses, but you go. So we went, but then my mom joined us still, and we kind of, when we saw that the Kiev region was liberated, we decided that we want to go back, because like it's our home, it's our life there. So we came back in May, and we stayed in Kiev, and even in summer it looked almost normal, almost
Normal.
like day-to-day life. Cafes open, people in the park. I even have a video on my camera that we wouldn't pay attention to air raid sirens, because nothing happened. They sounded like 3 times, 4 times a day, but nothing happened. So it was just, another noise that you would get. And I even have a video where I filmed the sound that goes off, and I'm in the city center, and I'm filming, and people just keep walking at the same pace, even without turning their heads, And then the years, like the September's kind of school year started. My children actually went to a face-to-face school. There was this change that their school built a shelter. They were taught to kind of how to go to the shelter, and every time there was the siren, they would go to the shelter, but again nothing happened. It sounded like it was there a few times, but nothing really happened. And then when I still remember, it was, what was it, October, can't remember the day now, 10th or 24th, and then I'm teaching this lesson, and I had a lesson, was I have some Spaniards as students of English. So I was teaching this Spanish student who lives in Madrid, and I hear this explosion, like right outside my window. And I go like, oh, there is an explosion outside my window. Oh, so what's the next word? Like I was in a complete, like shock. So I tried to
kind of block it out. And the student was like, maybe you need to go somewhere, you know, like maybe you need to, I'm like, what can I do? You know, the war is going on. So, yeah, and then those like weekly missile attacks started. So they would send like
take out the electricity and the water supplies and stuff. Yeah.
First, it was for the first month. Yeah, yeah. Like we started having those shortages, and new businesses sprang up in Kiev. This co-working spaces where people would provide. They have their own electricity generators. They have optic fiber. So their internet is stable, and they would just sell a spot at a work desk, you know, where you can come and work, and actually booked one, and I kept working. I couldn't work from home anymore because there was no electricity and no internet. If I did have, because then my husband is an engineer, so like very soon we did have light in our house, but we still didn't have like we had our own, not generation, but the power saving, you know, system. But the biggest problem for us, since we live on the 16th floor, and the water is pumped by electrical pumps. As soon as we would lose electricity, we would lose water supply. And it's bathroom, kitchen, everything.
Yeah.
Highly uncomfortable, highly. And like even bringing water from, you know, from the first, like on the 16th floor, like, so I got fit. I didn't mind, you know, walking.
You do your steps.
Yeah, I got my thousands of like easily. I didn't mind it anymore, but carrying, you know, heavy stuff was not very comfortable. So I would work from this co-working space. I would work from my husband's office, because we had the schedule where, you know, would turn it off at different points of time. But then in December it got desperate. You know, in December they would have this total blackouts for 12 hours for 3 days. I think there was something like, or 48 hours, no water, no electricity. But in my apartment, we do have the like natural gas oven, like stove, cooker. So we at least could have hot food. But my building is old. It's like it's from Soviet times. But people who live in newer buildings and have everything is electrical, cookers, microwaves, everything. They didn't even have the opportunity to, like, you know, to make hot food, which was really bad. So, but then I had enough, and in December, like I understood that you know, like I'm at a co-working space. My husband is at work where they have this generator and like stable internet, but my kids are at home in the dark, you know, like, and I understood that it's not working, you know. So I decided that we would go to Ireland. I picked Ireland because of English, you know, and because I had some people I know there who would kind of help me integrate. But we stayed there only for 3 months, and in the middle of March we came back. Ireland did not agree with me.
No.
No, it was difficult. It was primarily it was difficult for children. They just, you know, they just didn't adapt. You know? Some children adapt really quickly. For somebody, it's, you know, a piece of cake. But mine, my youngest even got really sick because he was, like, you know, so nervous
because of school and language and everything is new. So he got sick, and they weren't able to help us to treat him. So we came back, and 2 months later we're still treating him, you know, like so it was difficult. I'm happy that we stayed there, like, you know, there was light, you know, there was warmth, there were some friendly faces. But as soon as we were able to go back to Kiev, because my husband was saying, like, come, you know, you can come back, it's okay here. Because in March it was okay here, you know. So we came back and we were really happy. And only like 2 weeks ago, something again. So in Kiev, you know, on the one hand, you feel this guilt that you're leaving this normal life. You go to a restaurant. Do I have the right to go to the cinema? While somebody is dying in Bakhmut, you know, like, do I have a moral right to do that? So this dilemma, it doesn't go anywhere. But then my son has had a birthday like 2 weeks ago. Like, so is it okay to have a celebration? Well, yes, because what the war did teach me is that we need to live now, because, you know, like, you never know, tomorrow might not come. Like, it's always the truth. It's not only, you know, you never know when a bus will hit you or something, you know, like, not only during the war, but during the war you kind of start appreciating those simple pleasures, simple moments of joy.
Impression about you could be hit by a bus tomorrow, because, well, when I was growing up, that was quite a kind of a common thing that I was told, which was like, you know, do it, you could be hit by a bus tomorrow.
We have a different expression, that a brick would fall on your head.
I'll build
any second a brick can fall on your head, so, you know, like, live your life.
Yeah. And so, apart from the kind of the displacement and having to deal with explosions and having to deal with where you're working, have you noticed any other ways in which your teaching has been affected, or the way in which you teach, or the content of what you teach, or the role of your job as a teacher has changed since the war?
A lot of things have changed, but maybe not in the way that you're describing, because I used to work for a language school, and I used to be like, it was a great start for me right after Salta, and because of that, like, motivation from that school, I also did my Delta. But then I kind of felt stuck, that I wasn't growing as a teacher, but I was afraid to make a move to become self-employed, or to become a teacher trainer, or which I always dreamed of. Or so I was kind of stuck in this, you know, I don't know, just in one position. And then when the war broke out, it just shifted my perspective. It was like, I don't have time to you know, to postpone my life. You know, I have to move, I have to change. If I want to change, I have to change. If I need to start living the life I want right now, because I might not have time in the future. So very soon I found the job was with some European schools. I started teaching speakers of other languages, primarily Spanish. And this was the first experience of not sharing L1 with the students, which was which is a very different experience. Even though we're still, like, in many schools we're like asked not to use L1, but still, even still, if the person asks me a question in Ukrainian, I will
still understand them, right? Maybe I will answer in English. But then when they ask me a question in Spanish, I'm like, I'm sorry, you will have to, you know, find a way and explain it. But the students love it. They're like, okay, you know, so they know, because when I, in a school, when I pretend that I don't speak Ukrainian, that's one thing, you know, like I just pretend, everyone knows I'm pretending. And it's, in some cases, it's unnatural, because like we're talking about getting the message across. Of course, it's faster and easier to get the message across in your own language. But then you make an effort to do it in L2. But with speakers of other languages, you're just like, you have no choice. And this is lingua franca. This is what you have to use. So this was a big change, and I don't think I would have the guts to do it if the war hadn't started. Because I would still, you know, probably work in my school.
I guess, you know, silver linings.
Yeah, silver linings. And then I started teaching groups of teachers, like general English, and then some methodology. And of course, sometimes our lessons start with like, oh, how did you live, you know, how was the night, you know, like, oh, I spent it, you know, in the basement, or I didn't sleep, or something.
Ukrainian teachers begins with some discussion of something like this. You know, it's just
not the small talk I would want to have, but then it's the only small talk you can, and it influences anything, you know, like you're planning this nice, funny lesson, and then there is an attack in a, like maybe not in Kiev, but like in a city where one of my students live, and then my students live all over Ukraine, you know, in Dnipro, in Uman, and then you don't know what to say. Like that I'm heartbroken, yes. Like how would I teach you, you know, like a funny lesson or something?
I know.
So, and that also influences my social media. Sometimes I just can't post anything. You know, like I have this something planned, but then something happens, like it happened just this week, and you're just numb.
One of the ways I've been dealing with all of this is just trying to turn some of what people talk about into input. So one of my students is in Chernovitsi, and she was late for class the other day, and she was driving through the city centre, and we could see some of the bombed out buildings there. And she said, like, if you look out the window, you can see where this hotel used to be. And my husband was staying near there for work the other day, and he's a really heavy sleeper, and he didn't wake up when the bomb hit. And, you know, partly everyone's laughing, and partly it's exactly that feeling of like, shit, I don't know how to respond correctly to this. And then partly what I'm doing is thinking, you don't know how to say he slept through the whole thing. And so, you know, there's a little bit of me that's always listening to these stories thinking, I know what I can teach you now. And then there's the other part of you that's just trying to respond as a human being to some awful, horrible, bloody story, you know. Yeah, I mean, I've ended up teaching a lot of language I wasn't planning on teaching. And language that will never appear in course books, you know.
Yeah, and actually I've seen some in innovations, you know, the older course books.
Yeah, I know.
That one. You might remember that. I actually, like, I just had to look at it. Like, somebody told me that's a nice course, despite being older course book. It's nice. So I even picked a few activities from there. But then there is this, I think, in advanced
conflict and war.
Yeah, conflict and war. And I opened that spread and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever heard of war happening or something? I'm like, no.
I know. I've kind of revisited some of that material since and just looked at it and sort of gone, oof, okay. Yeah.
So, but yeah, how would you know, right? How would any of us know all those years ago,
Books, you have no idea of the context in which they're going to be used ultimately, you know? So yeah, the other thing I wanted to ask is, obviously, you know, you're self-employed now. Congratulations. You're bringing up 2 kids. I know how difficult this is myself because I've got an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I know how time-consuming it is. Have you had time to be involved in anything else apart from teaching over the last couple of months, say?
Well, I have friends, like volunteer friends, but it's kind of not really war related. Well, everything is war related now, but like I used before kids, you know, I have 2 lives. Before kids, I used to do a lot of volunteer work with orphanages and like kids hospitals.
Okay.
But then I kind of had to give up, like personally. So I just helped, like donated, you know, money when I could. But now, now I'm back to. I have just a few. I know personally some directors of orphanages in Ukraine, and one of them is in Uman. And like whenever we're able, my husband and I, we just help them in any way possible. So it's not directly war related, but then when there was this bombing, like even last year, and it's like a small orphanage of I think like 20 kids, and like only a director and 2 teachers and something, like it's very small, and like we have this family style orphanages. So she took all the kids to her own personal house, the director, and they lived there, and they struggled obviously with like everything. So when like however we could help, we did that. So I'm doing a little bit of this kind, but honestly, with teenager children right now, I do only only 3 things. I teach my own lessons. I prepare for the next day lessons, and then in the evenings I do algebra, chemistry, Ukrainian literature, and you know, like and somebody says, well, you mustn't help them. Like, yeah, but when my 14-year-old says, like, I don't care, you know, like I don't care if I get a 1, you know, like 1 out of 12, you know. So like at least when I'm a moral support of he's doing something. So like I've learned a lot of chemistry recently. Yes.
So I have 2 maybe slightly more difficult questions. I don't know. I wanted to ask if you still have any family or any friends or contacts in Russia at all.
That's a good question. My husband's family is from Russia. Big part of his family is from Russia, and he was actually born in Russia. He's Ukrainian, but you know, we have like we have like internal passports.
Yeah.
And when you open it, you see like name, surname, and then a place of birth.
Yeah.
And then like in large letters it says Russia. But the passport is Ukrainian. So, but there were a few times now, like especially last spring, when somebody would like open his passport as like Russia. He's like, I couldn't choose where to be born, you know, guys, I'm sorry, but like I live here. But yeah, like so we get that sometimes, but he's Ukrainian. But he was born in Chita, which is far away, far north. So a part of his family stayed here, his aunts, his cousins, his father's like cousins, second cousins, and all of those guys. So basically only his mother and father came to live in Ukraine. He was like a military, so he was moved all around Soviet Union, but then they finally ended up in Ukraine. But most of his family, like distant family, lives in Russia.
we almost don't communicate anymore.
Yeah.
Because people, they visited us like in 2000, already had kids, so it was like before Crimea, so 2012, 2013, they visited us, you know, we walked them around Kiev. There were like nice people, they are not like, seemed to be, appeared to be nice people. But then now, when the war started, they started sending us message and telling that we are brainwashed, we're Nazis, we're, you know, like fascists or whatever.
Oh.
And my husband used to have like a very good friend. They used to be colleagues. They worked together many hours. Like, my husband is an engineer, and that guy is also, and they kind of clicked together. But the guy is from Simferopol. And so he came to Kiev, they worked together, then he left, and they continued their communication. And then when the war started, he sent a message like, don't worry, we're coming.
Oh, man.
My husband, like, what? He just deleted all of, like, you can't talk to such people. He did try to talk to his cousins in Russia, but it just bounces off, you know, like explanations. We tried, my husband tried to send them, and you know what what hit us the hardest is their unwillingness to open their eyes.
Yeah. No,
Not the fact that they, not the fact that, you know, like, because I understand if it's the only thing that you hear from television, it's the only thing you hear from neighbors, the only thing you hear in your school, you kind of, well, you have nothing, you tend to believe it. Okay, I get that. But when somebody sends you a link to a YouTube video or to something, and you just don't want to watch it, it's a different story. Like, it's not that, yes, most of such videos and channels are forbidden, but VPN is like a worldwide, you know.
I think you have a whole generation of Russians who they find it impossible to believe anything, almost. You know, it's almost like they can't process what's real, what's not real, that they've been bombarded with so much fake shit that they're kind of suspicious of anything, and they have this thing of, who can know what's really true? And it's like, well, why don't you talk to people who are there? You know, well, why don't you look at what they're seeing from their windows and talk to them? Oh, it could be fake. Who knows? It's impossible to know. And I think just this kind of, rather than even making people believe one thing, I think the most dangerous thing Russian propaganda's done is stopping all those people from believing anything is true. It's almost like, we're just little people. It's impossible for us to know. The truth is somewhere in between. We will never know the story. I can't think about this. I'm just going to carry on with my life. And I think that's...
It seems like that, because, like, and again, like, I send a video, and we're sending a video to, and, you know, like, I understand the random person from Moscow who has never seen me, they would, like, I take a photo out of my window showing, you know, like a destroyed building, for example, they can say it's a fake, I don't know you. But if it's a cousin, and they visited us, and they know us, and they still make this choice, not, oh, I can't watch this video, it's blocked. I'm like, here's the program you can watch, you can install to watch it. Oh, it's too difficult, all these programs to install them, you know, like, and we're like, well, you know, we can only, and then one of those, actually, you're right, one of those switched to
I don't know what's true. So maybe our guys are wrong, but maybe your guys are wrong as well. You know,
Yeah,
like so you never know. Maybe we're not fully, you know, like on the right side, but yours aren't as well. So you know, we're in this what do you call it?
limbo.
No, no. So we're like just, you know, suspended in this. We don't know and it's even worse, you know. It's like it's either you're against Ukraine and you are not afraid to say that, and we just know you, like, okay,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
or you're for us, but this agnostics, you know, like as they say in the religion, right? The person who is not sure whether they believe or not believe in God, they're called agnostics, I
yeah,
believe.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's there, like these agnostics who are not sure whether, you know, where there is truth and there is lie about the war in Ukraine. And this is even more horrifying because
So
like
on,
these people will choose their future somehow.
yeah, I know, I know. I have one more kind of connected, possible triggering kind of question, which is because of the people that I know follow my channel and because of the years I spent going to Russia, I know there will be lots of Russians out there who end up watching this video. And I just wondered if there was anything you wanted to say. I mean, it's fine if there's nothing you wanted to say to any of them. I would completely understand that as well. I just wondered if there was anything you wanted to tell them or ask them or not.
I would just say, like, open your eyes, you know, like, if you don't want me to swear in the live stream.
Feel free to bear it. You know, I myself.
But like on the more, you know, intelligent, like on the side of thinking, I would just say, you know, like, research. Open your eyes, research, open your eyes to possibilities that what you hear and see in Russia is not true, that there are other views. And somehow when Putin invites the presidents of the African countries I've never heard of for his support, you know, against United Europe, America, and then Russia, they just say, oh, well, that's just Europe going against us. You know, it's not our fault. They just decided to unite against us. I'm like, well,
Europe became Russophobic.
maybe, you know, there is something else. But I believe that people cannot be forced. Unfortunately, probably unfortunately, but they can't. Maybe when they are in captivity, you know, they're soldiers in captivity, maybe they can be forced to kind of realize the truth. But again, even like I've read on the news that even after being in captivity and then the swapping of the soldiers and then they come back and bomb us again, you know, like it's not that they've been like persuaded fully,
I
but
friend of mine who's originally from Tver and he moved to Sri Lanka and he moved right at the start of the full-scale invasion and he's very, very aware of everything that's happening. And we were talking the other day and I was saying after the Second World War where they took the German citizens and they basically showed them the mass graves and showed them the concentration camps. And my friend was basically saying, trust me, there's so many people inside Russia that even if you showed them Bucha, they would still kind of go, yeah, but it can't be real. It can't be our boys that did it. And that there's just this kind of level of brainwashing and denial that's so deep in people that even presenting them with the reality of what had happened would be like, you know, yes, but your Nazis must have done this. You know, that there would still be that level of just inability to look at anything, which is really scary. It's really scary.
really scary, and it means that there is no, like, there isn't this level or this point at which you can actually persuade the person, right? When you show them the photos, like, and when it becomes like undeniable, right? So some facts you can deny, but then when it becomes undeniable, they just switch. Oh, but that's yours.
Yeah.
Your own soldiers did it.
Yeah.
So they switched to, and when they showed the photo of Uman, the residential building destroyed in Uman, and they said it's in Belgrade or something, like weeks ago, weeks ago, and they said that it's our soldiers destroyed it somewhere. I can't remember, but it was like a fake. They took a photo from one town and they said it's in a different town, destroyed by different people. And
it's like been doing it for years. So
and it's like, yeah. So my query, what I would ask the people who can still think independently, we just do your research. Like, we cannot force you to believe, but maybe there will be, a revelation. You will feel, and more and more people will. And this is what we see now happening in Belgorod region. We're not really sure what's going on, but maybe it's the first wake-up call inside Russia.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people have been saying for a long time that at some point the war comes home to Russian soil in all kinds of different ways, whether it comes home through Chechens or through Wagner and Prigozhin or through, partisan groups, or however it comes home, but the war will come home to Russia in various ways. And, it's hard to be sure exactly what's happening with.
Yeah, it's really, we're like just, have you read the news today? We're still like, nobody's sure what really is happening, but this is like my friends, like in my circles, we're like, what we're talking, like my family, my friends, what we're talking about, that's probably one of the, like one of the ways we see one of the ways out of this situation is the problems inside Russia itself.
Well, it's in Ukraine's interest to escalate and to make the war come home, because it's one of the ways in which Russians will start to. Well, it's also when Russia doesn't know where its borders are.
So, that's the problem.
Where are the borders of Russia? No one knows. It's wherever Putin says the borders of Russia are today. So it's like, well, if you think Kherson is Russia, then maybe Belgorod isn't. And so borders can move both ways, and it's a very dangerous game to play. And I don't think they give a shit about the small towns near the borders in Moscow. I don't think they care. In Moscow, people don't think about what life is like in small towns in the middle of nowhere. It's not
only the border, right? Just anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, a lot of people say that Moscow and St. Petersburg are like, they're like separate.
God, I mean, I've been on, and when you're out in small towns in Siberia, it's a different reality. It's a completely different reality, and a lot of people inside Moscow never see those places. They don't see the poverty, they don't see the alcoholism, the heroin, the kind of just destitution in those places, because they're protected from that. Same way, in a way, it's the same in England. If you live in London, you don't see the poverty of northern working class former mining towns or whatever. You don't have to think about it. So it's every country has its own version of that, I think. But Russia's very
probably the war has changed that for Ukraine. Because before the war, we were pretty much the same. Maybe I want to believe that not as haughty as Muscovites, but still, like, life in Kiev is very different from life in a small village somewhere, in Poltava region.
Luhansk oblasts or whatever.
Yeah. But what was the start of the war? Like, I don't know, like, Putin wanted to kind of divide us, right? But no one better than him united Ukrainians You know, like he succeeded in what presidents weren't able to do. Like most Ukrainian presidents weren't able to unite the nation as well as Putin did. You know, so maybe, you know, a silver line, it's a horrible thing to, but it's still, there is this silver lining of self-identification, because 20 years ago I didn't really care if I was Ukrainian or I was not. I like, well, I liked my life, I enjoyed my life in Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine, like I was just born here, you know. There wasn't this sense of belonging to a nation. And now, like, I'm actually proud, you know, I'm actually proud that I'm Ukrainian. And this is the new feeling that is spreading around.
When I was in Kiev, like one of the early times, and I had a friend there, and we were chatting in a bar one night, and she was saying that she never really felt Ukrainian, she felt European. And I was going, well, I feel European as well, but I also feel very English and very London. And it's like, why can't you feel both? Why can't you feel like a Ukrainian who's very European? And she was saying at that point, she didn't really feel like that identity was available to her, or that was, you know, something that she could kind of claim and say. And I think now the war's changed everything. You know, the war completely, it's like, I'm a Ukrainian and I'm a European. And it's well, it's nice to know Putin has some useful function in the world.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Like,
it is what it is, you know, like we can't change it. Like I wish the self-identification of Ukrainians had come differently, you know, to us. We would have some, you know, outstanding, I don't know, writers or scientists or whoever. We always had good sportsmen. So, you know, but I wish it had happened differently. But since it is what it is, we appreciate at least this part of what's happening around us.
As I guess you probably know, in Western Europe, you have some people, particularly people who see themselves sort of on the anti-American imperial, anti-UK imperial kind of left, who march for peace and who are calling for negotiated settlements and sitting round the table with the Russians and trying to put an end to this war. How do you feel as a Ukrainian and as a Kievan? What did we decide? Kievite?
Kievite. I like Kievite more. Like, I have a close friend who works for a foundation. I think it's a German foundation, but like it works in Kiev in Ukraine. Like it's been working here for like 10 years or so. They help us develop our democracy. Like it moves forward some European values, democratic values. It's been doing it for years now. So as a part of that foundation, she went to some, like with the start of the war, they're all over the place, and she went to Germany, and she was having a talk like about Ukraine, about the situation, and she was approached by some, I think there were Germans, yes, some, I don't know, representatives of, I don't know who they were, don't want to lie, but like some representative of German nation. And she was like, oh, you're Ukrainian, you're a woman, so what do you say if we get you together with Russian women to this, you know, round table of conversation, and you, as women, you will try to find this peaceful, like, negotiation solution? And she's like, are you kidding me? You know, it's like, these are the women who send their sons, their husbands, to kill our sons, our brothers, our husbands, our children, and you want me to find peace, to come to negotiate? So of course she refused, But then she was telling me this, that it was just one of the series of such invitations, and they keep springing up around Europe where people are. I understand the Portuguese, I understand Germans, Italians who are tired of inflation, who don't want to see their eggs going up in price twice their price, right? The oil, the gas, the airplane tickets skyrocketing. I understand kind of that they feel this discomfort, but then it's not the solution, right? And like whenever I hear something along those lines, like okay, I'm like, try to imagine a part of your country has been taken. Try to imagine in Spain. Trying to imagine Catalonia has broken away. You know, like it has been taken by France. You know, can you imagine just Paris marching their troops into Barcelona and saying, okay, you know, we have one more, you know, coastal city. Like no, it's unimaginable. Well, that's the same for us. It's the same for us. Can you imagine Mexico marching into Texas and saying, oh, okay, you know, like let's you know, unite, and you're not the United States anymore. But that's unfortunately what I've been hearing coming from the States as well, where a lot of pro-Russian people from Donetsk and Lugansk moved there like after 2014, and now they're spreading these lies that it's all like, you know, they're spreading these lies that nothing's happening there. It's all a lie. What you see on TV, like it's a whole, like a big fat lie.
Yeah.
And these people are actually like, they're, you know, like distant acquaintances, but still somebody would text me and ask me like, oh, so, you know, the war has ended, so nothing's going on anymore because somebody showed me, you know, the photos of Donetsk, and it's fine. And they want to believe it, you know, they want this peace back again. Oh, like, let's just stop this war. Like, come on, aren't you tired? You're sending your you know, your soldiers to die. Like, let's just stop it. And just recently, was it yesterday? Oh, I think like yesterday, the day before yesterday, when Russia released its new
peace plan.
Yeah. Like, we will stop the war if you don't join NATO, which is understandable. If you don't join European Union, like, what the hell? If you stop receiving armor, like weapons from Europe, we're like, yeah, you will take us in 2 days or something. And it's like, for whom? You know, who is it for? Who will actually consider it?
People I know who are otherwise quite sensible, who say things like every war ends in a negotiation. And it's like, well, did the Second World War end in a negotiation? Because I missed that bit. I think the Second World War ended up with the Red Army marching into Berlin and Hitler killing himself in a bunker. And after Germany fell, then there was a negotiation. Okay? Did Vietnam end in a negotiation? No, it didn't. You know, did the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan end in a negotiation? No, it didn't. It ended up with them leaving because they were losing thousands and thousands of people. And I think there's this kind of weird myth that every war ends in a negotiation, so let's start negotiating.
No, I mean, Ukrainians don't mind if the negotiation is, you know, just leave. You know, just leave. Give us our land back. Give us our like, and then even not only that, then Ukraine will be asking them to pay back all the, you know, all the reparation, all the. But at least just leave. But even that, right now, unfortunately, I can't imagine, because I can see I can see that we're getting stronger, and hopefully we will be able to push them out. But the missiles, the drones, all of that, I don't know. Like I'm not a military. I can't right now, as just a citizen, regular citizen. I can't imagine how to stop that, because Kherson was liberated, but it's still heavily shelled and bombed, and like people are still dying there in the shops. So what kind of future is waiting for us? I'm still not sure. So like I listened to Timothy Snyder's lecture, one of his lectures, and he said that after each war there is a revolution inside the country which kind of started it or something. So like we're hoping.
Well, did you
our
see
best hope is a revolution in Russia.
I mean, Prigozhin was very openly basically threatening a revolution inside Russia last week, basically saying that my boys haven't had enough support, and the fat people in Moscow are sending poor people to die, which is obviously exactly what's happening. And at some point the troops can turn on the people in Moscow. And it's like, this is Prigozhin saying this.
I rewatched that video. Like, did I hear him right? I was like,
he's basically
I couldn't actually believe my ears.
He's threatening 1917. That's basically what he's saying is, remember how this ended in 1917. And,
it was a monarchy, and it feels like it's a monarchy right now as well.
So I guess my final question is, and it may sound like a stupid question, but how are you feeling about the coming month and year?
Like being in Kiev, I feel optimistic because we are successfully, took down, our military have successfully taken down everything that was coming our way. But then the next day you read about Dnipro and you're heartbroken. So, but just hoping that we will get the planes, we will get the F-16s, and our
question of when
we will be able to close our skies, and like, so optimistic, and just reminding myself that just being sad will not help me, will not help me, my country. So I'm trying to just keep working, helping, like financially helping the army, helping other, like those who are in need, because we always have this, this posts going around. Those guys need some kind of ammunition, those guys. So we're trying. So like I'm on the side of living my day-to-day life, working, paying taxes, helping the country the way I can help, but still not forgetting to live my life.
Yeah.
Because I just feel that postponing is not a good idea in this situation.
Yeah.
We kind of, we're frozen for the sun is coming my way to my window. We were frozen, like in that fear and anxiety, like for the first, couple months, like February, like last year, February, March, April, we were like, like we breathed in and we didn't breathe out. So we were just, in those months, like exactly a year ago, I was feeling that I was just surviving.
Yeah.
Just eating, sleeping, doing like some day-to-day things, but I was just waiting for kind of, you wind up, but you don't unwind or something.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't want it to be the norm, but it is what it is. So like, I do what I can to help my family, my children through this period of time.
help myself, not to, go crazy. So like I spend a lot of time outside, like I do my job, I help other teachers, and just hoping for the best, and being like feeling more Ukrainian than I had ever felt before.
And is there anything else you wanted to share with us before we finish?
I think I even overshared.
You know, you're not alone in oversharing sometimes. So, in which case, thank you so much for
having me,
sharing your stories, and for being with us. And Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Nice to meet you. Thank you for this talk.
And you, and I look forward to meeting you in Kyiv after the victory.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
all right.
Yes.
Take care, Eugenia.
Yeah. Bye.